God created us to be like him, which is holy, because it mirrors his divine nature in this world to help and not hurt by serving for the benefit of life and not death.
Visit our website, helpinggetvictory.org.
A voice of rescue, training overcoming.
Rescue with a word to rescue, titled Trained, Not Troubled.
This is message number 15.2 in the 500 series, His Comfort, Our Call. It is now time to finalize Partake right in his values, which is our 8th example of Jesus modeling for us how to follow in his footsteps. It is my prayer that we have established that comfort comes from God, the Holy One, and that trouble comes from Satan, the evil one, so that we are not mistaken that seeking anything besides God as a source of comfort is evil. And so God is the only remedy who can truly help us in trouble. God either helps us personally or he sends his resources to support us. Therefore, where we receive our comfort determines our level of preparation for trouble. The EXB translation of Hebrews chapter 12 verse 10 reads, "Our fathers on earth, they disciplined us for a short time in the way they thought was best, but God disciplines us to help us for our good benefit, so we can become holy as he is, share in his holiness." And so discipline from God is intended to be a teaching moment. It comes to keep us on the path to become holy so that we can partake right in God's value. This is why God cannot allow us to be fooled into believing that any good can come from sinning. Again, this is why God values restoration, because it brings us back to take part in his holiness. Therefore, discipline is required because it helps us to know when we are progressing or regressing in our standard of living as God intended. So discipline occurs to give us notice that we are about to veer off and change our direction from following God. This is important because when we partake in what God values, we esteem his plan, his purpose, and destiny as our objective. Then it befits us to learn by heart that trouble comes to stop us from wanting what God wants, doing what God wants, and being like God. In this manner, we allow trouble to change our values, cause us to fall and miss God's mark. Discipline then is our heads up of a flag in our play, or rather our walk, that we are headed out of the bounds that God has determined as necessary for our life. God created us because he loves us. This is why God values that we come back to him and the state of who he created us to become. So it serves as a checkpoint to signal a distinction between right values and wrong values. It's a forewarning to return to God's origination of us being like Him in character and living God's holy highest for us. God created us to be like Him, which is holy, because it mirrors His divine nature in this world to help and not hurt, by serving for the benefit of life and not death. God values that we understand the importance of progressing to be right with Him and become more and more like Him. The NLV translation of 1 Peter chapter 1 verse 17 reads, "The Father is the one who judges you by what you do. He does not respect one person more than the other. If you call Him Father, be sure you honor Him with love and fear all the days of your life here on earth." So salvation fosters our state of restoration to facilitate our ability to do the things that God wants us to do. However, the power to do what God wants must accompany our conformity to value, seeing what God wants us to do through to completion. Why? Because what we do not only determines if we will spend eternity in heaven with God or hell with Satan. The actions that we take either reinforce our consideration for God's values to restore life, or the world's values of lust and pride, which equate to not listening to God, doing things its own evil way, stealing, killing, and destroying because there is no value for life. Therefore, we must persist to take right in God like Jesus when troubles come. In this way, we maintain our restoration to be kept holy in God's nature and no longer bound to the evil nature of Satan, which makes us wrong, unholy, ungodly, and wicked. We have to make it our obligation to practice unification and not separation from Jesus. This becomes our lifelong goal. This is the only way for us to attain and sustain an impartation of God's divine nature, to steer our focus on following Jesus' example, to partake right in God's values for our life.
Thank you for listening to this message. We pray that it was a blessing. Now, if you're not a subscriber, think about hitting that like button. Then smash that subscribe button to be the first to hear our messages when they appear. Also visit our website, helpinggetvictory.org, to learn more about how victory